Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. Biden's border crisis continues to spiral. In January alone, there were over 150,000 illegal migrant encounters. It's down a little bit, but it's so far up, nothing's down. It's all up. And that means nearly 900,000 people, 900,000, almost a million, have illegally crossed just since October. And that is what we know about. This includes a reported 800% jump in the number of Chinese nationals crossing illegally. Over 900 alone were apprehended in December. Meanwhile, here in New York, the city has started busing illegals to Canada, where they're complaining that it's too cold. But as it turns out, many of them are not exactly loving their time in Canada. Who can blame them? Right now, with reaction, Fox News contributor Sara Carter and National Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd. Sara, let me start with you. So we're still breaking records. We just did a whole 20 minutes on the Communist Chinese and what they're doing, and we're seeing a huge increase at the southern border. What do we know about that?
So what we know is that over 1,800 just in the last 3 months, Chinese nationals have come across the U.S. southern border. And that's a real large increase. I mean, I've been covering the border now for about 18 years, Pete. And I remember I would always hear about Chinese nationals, or I would run into Chinese nationals. But those numbers were always pretty small. Right now, we're seeing this ginormous increase. I mean, if you look at last year's numbers, it was somewhere around 200 plus that crossed in those same 3 months. So that's why you're seeing this 800%. But I want to talk about that border. And we have been talking about China. And our adversaries like China are taking advantage of our southern border. We've seen that with the movement of fentanyl, the shipment of precursor chemicals into Mexico so that the cartels can use those precursors to make fentanyl and fentanyl tablets and counterfeit pills that are on our streets that are killing our young, that are killing our citizens. I've always said this is an asymmetrical warfare of China. And now we see our airspace being invaded. This is a very dangerous time. I have to agree with Gordon Chang, Congressman Issa, others that I'm talking to, and we have never gotten control of this border. And under Biden, it has been so bad that I know our U.S. intelligence, as well as our DEA and our FBI, are constantly monitoring that, because this is an issue that I think goes far beyond just people crossing. It's a national security issue as well.
Brandon, in your experience, what does it mean? What does it tell you when you see such a substantial increase from one country alone over a certain period of time?
As an agent, what scares me the most is where they're crossing. What we normally see is we see Venezuelans crossing at one specific point. In other words, they're working with one cartel. We see Haitians, we see Cubans cross at one specific point. What we're seeing with the Chinese, they're crossing everywhere. They're crossing across the entire southwest border, from San Diego to Tucson, all the way to the Rio Grande Valley. They're not just concentrating in one area, and that means that they're working with all of the cartels. That means that China is involved with every single one of the cartels, and that is a very, very scary issue for the United States. And that's one of the reasons why it is so important that we get the border under control, that we secure the border so that we can safeguard the American people. And right now, we're just not doing it.
Hey, Sara, I bet this administration is going to try to tout these recent monthly numbers, which are slightly down from the previous, but still, as I said, way up, as some sort of success. Will you explain, disavow them of that? Well, what's the reality of these numbers?
Well, the reality of these numbers is that it's still...
Hold on, go ahead, Sara, real quick.
No. They're extraordinarily high. They're extraordinarily high. And we've seen dips before in winter where things lull down and then they pick up again in the spring. These numbers are going to continue to increase. The word is out. We've seen that across the northern border and the southern border. So I'm not expecting the cartels to back down. I'm expecting it to move even faster. And I expect to see an increase by spring, much like we saw last year, if not higher.
Brandon, you see the numbers of known terrorists, right, that are on the watch list that are apprehended. And those are just the ones we know about, which are staggeringly higher than anything under the Trump administration. 1 year in the Trump administration, there were 0. And now and then you see the number of, as you pointed out, across the border, Chinese nationals. What are their intentions? Who are the ones that can pay a lot and make sure they're not captured? When you go to bed at night, or agents, or how do you not have an imminent fear that at some point this is going to come to roost because bad people are going to come here with bad intentions?
Well, it's a very scary situation, what we're dealing with right now. In the month of December, we apprehended 17 people that were on the terrorist watch list. If we have a full year where we apprehend 10 people, that's a lot. Yet we had 1 month where we apprehended 17. And when you look at the gotaways, when you consider that 1.2 million people have been able to enter our country illegally and have been able to evade apprehension, that becomes even more scary. These people spread out throughout the entire United States. We don't know what their intentions are. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know if they're bringing in fentanyl. This is all happening, and it could stop tomorrow. But the political will just doesn't exist with this administration. They really do not care about the American people. When you look back at the policies, President Trump created the will. We always say you don't want to recreate the will, but he had to create the will. And he gave us the policies that were necessary to secure the border, and then Biden stole those policies from us, and now we have the most insecure border that I have seen in my 25-year career.
And Donald Trump said they're not setting their best either. And that certainly seems to be true as well. Sara, Brandon, thank you so much.